If you come here to complain about the game, I dare you to make your own. That's right. I want you to program a game with graphics as good as these, gameplay as smooth as this, and overall something people can enjoy. What's that? You can't make a video game yourself? Then quit hating on those that can. If you want something done perfectly to your thought process, do it yourself, and quit complaining. Cheers to From Software for not giving a frick.
Behold the language of the automaton, a degradation of discourse and a quiet tragedy of a person who has surrendered his judgment for comfort and his conscience for a sense of belonging. And if you have seen comments like this, you know that this indicates spiritual starvation masquerading as community. There is a mechanized soullessness at work in a response like this. It is often suggested, sometimes implicitly, sometimes with astonishing bluntness, that one forfeits the right to critique a work of media unless one has personally produced an equivalent or superior alternative. The logic is familiar. Dissatisfaction with a film, a game, or a book is not met with engagement but with dismissal. Make your own, then. The assumption beneath this response is rarely examined, though it exerts considerable influence in online discourse and critical culture alike. Curiously, this expectation appears almost uniquely reserved for cultural production. For media, one does not typically expect a dissatisfied customer to construct their own plumbing system in order to justify a complaint about a leaky faucet. Nor is it considered unreasonable to evaluate a meal without having personally trained as a chef. Yet, in the realm of narrative and aesthetics, critique is increasingly framed not as an act of interpretation or engagement, but as a trespass, an intrusion by the uncredentialed into a space that demands creative equivalence as the price of admission. This posture functions less as a genuine appeal to fairness than as a mechanism for deflecting criticism. It privileges production over reflection, as if the mere act of creation inoculates a work from judgment. That such a standard is applied so selectively, rarely invoked in response to, say, architectural failure or medical malpractice, should give us pause. It reveals less about the nature of authorship than about the anxiety surrounding it, a desire to shield certain works from scrutiny by insisting that only their creators, or their creative equals, may speak truth to it. But the public nature of storytelling, like that of any shared cultural endeavor, invites participation, including dissent. And to engage critically with a text is to take seriously the premise that ideas once offered are meant to be received, questioned, and when necessary, contested, and the authors of those works ought to also receive their due scrutiny. But much of media consumption has become a church of reversed expectations. Once subversive, now passive. Whether it be movie directors, story writers, or video game developers, they are all cast as saints who just work so hard on their projects, and somehow that renders their results sacred artifacts immune to scrutiny. And the critics, those who love these mediums enough to challenge them, are deemed heretics. If you don't like it, make your own, they say. This anti-intellectualism is more than defensiveness, it is theology. It is the liturgy of the marketplace, where brand loyalty is mistaken for devotion and silence for virtue. But art, especially interactive art like games, does not flourish under such a regime. It demands engagement, it demands dialogue, and most of all, it demands the courage to care about it. And this leads me to talk about the infamous "bro, why do you even care" posture, which is also common among self-styled normie gamers. That which is intended to be a display of neutrality is in fact a symptom of complicity. And it must be complicity, else it would not be used as a defense from criticism. What I'm talking about is a form of cultural nihilism. It masquerades as emotional maturity while quietly defending the status quo, which the nihilist intuitively knows is degenerate. When concern for art, ethics, or culture is met not with thought but with mockery, what we are witnessing is a kind of sterilized consumerism parading as wisdom. It is a cynicism cloaking itself in apathy to avoid the appearance of vulnerability, a denial of one's own insecurities. And it is this same irony poisoning that makes sincerity appear cringe and calls conviction irrational. It is the newest edition of hipster culture. It's hip to be a nihilist. It's hip to use irony, sarcasm, and shitposting as default tones. It is also hip to mock sincerity as cringe. And of course, it is hip to use expressions like touch grass and cope or stay mad as dismissals of any deep emotional or moral engagement. This is Reddit Culture 101. And the real irony is that this cultural nihilist cares too much about avoiding caring too much. They obnoxiously insist that they remain unfazed, sarcastic, or indifferent to everything and anything. But in reality, beneath that performance is an unwillingness to judge or to stand for something. It is not that the person has a superior perspective, it is that they often refuse to risk any perspective other than you shouldn't have one. The refusal to care too deeply has become a badge of honor, especially among those who fear being seen as earnest. Their posture is also very safe because it commits to nothing while pretending the aspect that makes life worthwhile is to make fun of everything else. There was a time when the cultural nihilist posed as a jester, a trickster figure laughing in the void, doing it for the lulz, defacing meaning as a kind of sport. The early internet, cloaked in so much anonymity and low stakes, was a fertile ground for such posturing. In that sandbox, one could afford to believe in nothing because belief had no cost. Conviction was optional, and detachment came cheap, but time has exposed the ruse. What once masqueraded as rebellion now congeals into orthodoxy. Cultural nihilism, once a pose of freedom, is hardened into a creed, and its adherents no longer mock from the margins, they now police the discourse. Their irony is no longer subversive. Where once they ask nothing, they now demand, why do you care so much? This is the new evangelism. Not belief, but the aggressive rejection of it. A war on seriousness disguised as neutrality. But the mask slips. Even nihilism has its dogmas, its gatekeepers, its missionaries. It has become what it claimed to despise, a creed for those too afraid to love anything enough to be wounded by it. The bro, why do you even care attitude is no accident. It is apathia in digital form, a hollow stoicism that mistakes detachment for strength. Cynicism, however, is not insightful. It is the cultural shrug of dismissive nihilism, where all sincerity is suspect and all love is a punchline. It is what happens when we trade stewardship for spectatorship and teachers for influencers. And this posture doesn't protect your media, your movies, your comic books, or your video games. Rather, it impoverishes everything. It reduces a living, breathing culture into a showroom of memes, franchises, and multimedia pipelines. And no culture will survive long when its stewards are ashamed to defend it. Media does not need more passive consumers ashamed of their passion. It needs critics and curators, those who see something sacred in the medium and are willing to look foolish for saying so. Love is not irony. Hope is not a meme. If we cannot speak honestly about what is broken, then we might as well not speak at all.